Also, for those who were observing from the outside this project, that the perspective is involving bodies, institutions, figures, that is huge, and in which we have to give voice to many players who are working on the same thing, who are dealing with the same thing, or may end up to deal with the same thing, and had to face problems they didn't know. They committed mistakes. They obtained extraordinary results. And since we talk about environment, biodiversity, and nature, that are not the piece of work that invented the borders. So this workshop was created with the scope to share these experiences together with this that share a common experience in the same territory. So the macro Alpine region with the scope to making sure that this heritage of data and location will not get lost and will not remain within Gestire 2020, but will move toward future projects and constitute a tradition and a history, so not to commit the same mistake and to be better, to face the matters in a way that have been dealt and already solved by people who are far away. So, and everything with the recent approval of restoration law of Europe. So this in the framework of a sharing of objective, and this work, the scope of this workshop is to create a network to share the experience, to produce a document that will have to be applied and provides also political substances to give a political result and be given to the European Commission and become part of a path. So first of all, we'll have a plenary session in which we will see the introduction of the topic. As soon I'll give the floor to Dario Kian, who will tell the idea of this workshop, and later on in parallel roundtable, we're not going to present results, we'll talk about results, but we will work actively in order to create a relationship and to make a summary that will be this document, and all the assembly will deal with this tomorrow. Today, we're going to discuss, we will start to set the conclusions, we're going to share experiences, and tomorrow, we are going to synthesize everything and produce a document. Dario Kian from ERSAF will explain you this and will tell us about the workshop.
Vorrei all of you for your cooperation to be here, and I'd like to thank my all the partners of Gestire that they cooperate with us to realize all the project and this workshop. Now I switch to Italian because I like to be more precise, and my English is not so precise. Quindi grazie.
Thank you and good morning, everyone. The last greetings that I'm gonna give is to our translators, interpreters that have been doing a very important efforts for our colleagues coming from the Alps region, and I'm very happy that they are with us today. Thank you. So, the idea of this workshop related to Gestire 2020. We discussed about this in this morning. And actually, Gestire 2020 project stems from the implementation of the path, the priority action framework, the implementation of the top priority actions for the sake of biodiversity. Working on these paramount subjects for which the region decided to start with project, we decided to implement the PAF project throughout a life project. We could have done it just staying within the building, the palace of the region, but we decided to open it and work on a life project, which are the themes on which we focused at the beginning. The governance theme, the theme relating to conservation of habitats and species and the restoration of such habitats and species, as well as the enlargement of raising more awareness about how biodiversity is important and how much Rete Natura 2000 is important. We have gone through this project in detail this very morning. It's a very complex 64 actions and 8 years of project. Working on the Life IP project, the first things that emerged is that we already experienced another synergy. The same partnerships is not common, it's not usual. On the one hand, we have the public entities, the regional government, but on the other, we have the monitoring players, the surveillance players, environmental associations. So these depict a landscape of how new synergies are born, the entities that manage the protected areas, the managing bodies of the protected areas, the agronomists and farmers. So here, Gestire starts to open up and to experiment new strategies and new paths. The technical facilitators, for example, are one of these paths that are in front of us, and we already spoke about them this morning. The themes about emerge how important working was. One of them was the governance topic. Governance in which that says how much governance is paramount to enhance the actions of the protected areas. The technical facilitators are one of the tools of the governments. What did they do? They helped the bodies to detect, to identify the proper ways to design things. They helped to identify funds in broad sense. Another important theme are the new energies. In my slides, I put 2 pictures that, in my opinion, are totally significant. Entities that are in charge of the transportation of energies. It is far away from the biodiversity. Hydraulic water pipelines entities that started to have a dialogue together with the managing bodies. And ecological networks, we often focus, and this emerged in a very strong way over these 8 years of works, how important working in the protected areas was, enhancing those areas, but the improvement of the protected areas couldn't do without working on the ecological networks, on the connections among the protected areas, and small interventions, small action, very, very small actions could provide a great contribution to the operations of an ecosystem in a territory. The involvement of professional figures that sometimes are far away from the biodiversity issues. And if you manage to show how you can amend the traditional approach, can give their contribution, can make the contribution to biodiversity. For example, Terna, traditional approach by Terna in the maintenance, if, as we are speaking about right now, is going to collect some changes in their ways of operation, could make a contribution to biodiversity, but at the same time they could keep their paramount role of the body that transports energy, electricity. Granted also some new channels of distributions during which some private entities, for example, Flora Autochthonous Center for the Little Plants, that are paramount to reconstruct some habitats that are fading away, that have been fading away. So all these elements that I've just outlined for you are the themes on which this 8-year project has led us to have some thoughts over them. And I made understood that we needed to open up a dialogue also with other working groups, other processes that sometimes were working on the very same territories and on the very same topics, because the biodiversity theme affects these other processes. And I'm happy having our colleagues here with us, the representatives of EUSALP and the colleagues of the Alps Convention. The territory has been shown to us from Alessandra Loricini in her slides. The macro region of the Alps is a very open, is a very broad region. The Lombardy region falls within this macro region. So as part of the context that Matteo Bordone reminded us in the very that he made, the new restoration law, the strategy for the biodiversity, we thought that opening up to a dialogue with these processes was important. And this is how the idea of a working moment was born, a moment in which we have the possibility to work on 3 different objectives. Our idea was to work on 3 different objectives, namely, the first of them was sharing the experiences and the good practices, what we have collected in our 8 years of project, as well as the problems, the issues. The second objective that we set for ourselves was developing and promoting new networks, new synergies, what we define as new networking. And thirdly, leaving something, leaving a legacy, starting from our experience, build on them, make a dialogue with the other processes, and leaving a legacy, yes, leaving something that could systemize our 8-year works, but paving the way for our future. And one of them, of course, Justiria told us this morning, and our colleagues this morning just told it that Justiria won't stop. NatConnect will be an opportunity to go on, but not just this. So we want a crossroads of the so-called Crossroads biodiversity message. This is a legacy, a message, a take-home message, so that we can harness what we have learned. The idea here is working on parallel sessions on the themes that I've just reminded you, the theme that relates to the governance, conservation and restoration, as well as the monitoring. So At the end of this very first plenary session, during which my colleagues from the Alps Convention and USALP are going to give us some input. We are going to divide ourselves into parallel sessions, and in the afternoon we are going to work within these 3 different sessions, during which we are going to make our contribution to this message. A draft has already been circulated. For it's printed, there was a first draft. Of course, this is not the version that you can find online, or not, because gradually all the colleagues have been working on this to implement, but from the different parallel session, summary, an executive summary will arise, and tomorrow morning, as Bordani was saying, we're going to work together in order to close, to bridge gap and to close our message, and we are going to convey it all over the world. And we'll see what Gestire legacy will be in their relationships with USALF and with the Alps Convention.
Thank you, Dario. So now we're going to start with some welcome intervention. The first is a video. It is a video of Alenka Mercoli, General Secretary of the Alpine Convention. I think that we're gonna watch the video now. No, we don't have it. Okay, let's see if we can solve the problem. So no video. So I'll invite Simonetta Baisi. She's a technician at the Ministry of the Energy Security, and she's going to explain better what she's going to tell us. Good evening, everyone. Mr. Paolo Angelini is the president of the Biodiversity Board and head of my convention. Wants to say hello to you. I want to thanks to all of those who worked for this event, especially ERSAF and Lombardy region, and the Slovene presidency of the Alpine Convention. The aspect of the mountain biodiversity is of great interest and has interest all the countries since the signing of this treaty in 1991. However, this subject has not yet a great involvement in the countries that signed this convention and in their strategy. The matter of the biodiversity is not enough known at a technical and administrative level in the territories, as it has been highlighted by the project 2020, and therefore the technicians are here for the sustain of the local player, and this is why in 2019 we have given to the a mandate for the knowledge of the biodiversity from mapping to the monitoring of itself. And this is from an harmonized method that can be a global level and at a mountain level from Carpathian Mountain. This harmonized method should allow the measuration of the progress of biodiversity and the possibility to intervene in case of issues, especially for the IUCN species in the red line. Right now, we are proposing a specific proposal at a European level with an important partnership and a number of observers that are interested to collaborate. Many of them are here today. And therefore, we consider that the experience of those who are here, those who worked in the project 2020 and the other, this might lead to an interesting collaboration that can be further analyzed for the Alpine biodiversity change services and quality of life. Thank you again to all the organizer and participant. Hopefully the relationship and the exchanges will be helpful for everyone. Thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry for the video problem, but I think that we managed to we managed to have it now. So now let's watch the video of Alenka Smerkovi, who is the General Secretary of Alpine Convention.
Dear talks, dear participants. I am pleased to be speaking to you at the start of this two-day international workshop focused on a topic that is crucial for the Alps, the preservation of the unique biodiversity in the region. The Alps are home to dear colleagues, dear participants. Dear colleagues, dear participants. I am pleased to be speaking to you at the start of this two-day international workshop focused on a topic that is crucial for the Alps, the preservation of the unique biodiversity in the region. The Alps are home to 30,000 animal species and 13,000 plant species. Aligning alpine biodiversity protection with action at the global level requires political coordination and, above all, a shared vision. This vision is being built up at different levels, starting with the Global Biodiversity Framework and its 23 targets, to the European Biodiversity Strategy and the new Nature Restoration Law, and finally, to the many national conservation and restoration strategies currently being prepared. The concrete implementation of these strategic objectives in the Alpine countries and regions is key. The Alps are home to diverse and cultural landscapes that are extremely important for flora and fauna and related ecosystem services. However, as land consumption is continuing, habitats are becoming smaller and more fragmented. And as the climate crisis is unfolding, alpine ecosystems and biodiversity are increasingly coming under pressure. The way forward entails ambitious conservation and restoration measures, along with appropriate monitoring and supported by efficient governance. During the next 2 days, you will have the chance to discuss these issues as illustrated by the live Gestire 2020 project. The project proposes practical recommendations to encourage a joint approach to conservation through the Natura 2000 network. The Crossroads Biodiversity event is an excellent opportunity to discuss with your peers from public and private organizations and learn something new. It is precisely these kind of exchanges that can help us find ways for a sustainable life in the Alps in the spirit of the Alpine Convention. Our Alpine Biodiversity Board, chaired by Italy, and especially its core group 3, coordinated by Germany, were therefore very pleased to support this initiative. I would like to end by thanking the other co-organizers who have put together this event, the Lombardy region, ERSAF, and the other partners of Gestire 2020, as well as Action Group 6 and 7 of the EUSALP. I wish you all a fruitful and constructive workshop and already look forward to hearing the outcomes.
Grazie. Era Alenka.
This is the Secretary General of the Alpine Convention. So now Before going on with other speeches, we would like to highlight that it's always difficult to try and find an executive summary of things in a conference that deals with so many things, so many players. So not to say that you're not being paying attention, but we want to say that Sara Selevale is with us. She draws some mind maps of what we have been saying that could work as a memo, as a way to remember everything, that and they are more easy to understand that rather than diagrams and graphs and figures, just to have some clarity about the Alpine conference from the German Federal Agency for Nation BV. Let's welcome a person who will discuss about Bettina, who will talk about the Biodiversity Board. Thank you.
Hello, yeah, okay. Buongiorno and good afternoon. It's my pleasure to introduce the Alpine Convention to you a little bit further. Could you please put up the presentation? Yeah. Actually, I will be focusing on governance issues of the Alpine Convention, one of the 3 major topics of this afternoon. I'm see Alenka and hear her also, and I'm confident that this is the wrong presentation, that we get the other presentation as well. This is the OISAL presentation. Okay. If it's a problem, we could maybe start with the OISAL presentation. It's the connection. Okay. Okay. Fine. Yeah. I have another chance now to view this excellent, make use of this moment. Wonderful. And I arrived yesterday at the railway station. I think it's the largest station in the world, isn't it? Okay, thank you. Is it? This is the one. Yeah. Good. So I will be talking briefly about the Alpine Convention. Yes. What is it? The Alpine Convention is the first treaty or agreement covering an entire mountain range and that crosses national borders. It involves 8 countries, 8 Alpine countries, and another member is the European Union. You see the 8 Alpine countries listed here, and you also see the perimeter of the Alpine Convention. The perimeter of the OISALP is a bit bigger. This will be presented to you soon. Yeah, what is the objective of the Alpine Convention? Actually, to safeguard the Alps and their unique natural and cultural heritage for now, but also in the future. The Alpine Convention is more than 30 years old. The idea goes back into the 50s to have a convention of the Alps, but the Alpine Convention was then signed in 1991 and got into force in 1995. So now, this is the framework of the Alpine Convention. Let's put it like also, yeah, it's the basis of the Alpine Convention. There is a framework convention, which includes guiding principles for transnational cooperation in the Alpine region. And there are 8 thematical protocols. You can see they deal with spatial planning, tourism, mountain forests, nature protection and landscape conservation and biodiversity, soil conservation and other issues. Now, I read through the biodiversity protocol, as I put it in short, recently, and I thought, wow, it's still very, very relevant. Almost 25 years ago, colleagues thought about the pressing issues on biodiversity already in the right way, and we are still facing lots of problems in that regard, as we know. The Alpine Convention also has by now developed 6 declarations. And the last one, launched in 2020, dealt with biodiversity, mountain biodiversity, and its promotion at international level. Others are looking at population and culture, climate change, sustainable economy, climate aspects, and sustainable water management. The convention is based on or the convention works with multi-annual work programs. The actual program runs from this year to 2030, and it has got 3 priority areas. The first one is conserving and valuing alpine biodiversity and ecosystems. The second priority area deals with climate taking ambitious climate action, and the third priority area looks at quality of life for people in the Alps. The convention has currently 8 thematic working groups. The Alpine Biodiversity Board is one of the youngest, formed in 2019. And besides, there's another a thematic working body dealing with biodiversity aspects, actually with looking at large carnivores and society, the VISO working group. Other working groups are looking at mountain agriculture, at spatial planning. There is the Alpine Climate Board, with which the Alpine Biodiversity Board closely cooperates. There's a working group on soil protection and on natural hazards, and a very old working group on transport aspects, which are very relevant, of course, also for the Alpine region. Besides, there are a couple of various ad hoc working groups that exist for a time and are sometimes closed again. Now, what are the objectives? Let's start with the first 2 objectives of the Alpine Biodiversity Board, and I will concentrate now on the ABB, so to speak ABB. The objectives of the current mandate, which lasts until end of next year, is to contribute to awareness raising and knowledge exchange on biodiversity, and to promote national and international cooperation. The second objective is to contribute to the achievements of the biodiversity European biodiversity targets, and especially the EU biodiversity strategy 2030. And we've heard something about that strategy already, and we'll still hear about that more. The third objective is to contribute to the implementation of the 2 biodiversity pathways of the Climate Action Plan 2.0. The 2 biodiversity-related pathways are: 1, protection and management of vulnerable and alpine-specific landscapes and ecosystems, and secondly, to enhance transboundary cooperation and ecological connectivity. And the last objective of the ABB mandate, the actual mandate, is to support the global ecosystem restoration efforts and raise the profile of the Alps as a model region. Yes. Well, this involves activities within the Alpine Biodiversity Board. This involves activities like workshops. This part of the workshop of this Gastiro workshop is also an activity of the Alpine Biodiversity Board. And another activity is we are currently working on a project under the Alpine Space Program on harmonizing monitoring in the Alpine of the Alpine biodiversity. A third activity is to liaise closely with the Alpine Climate Board and to foster its efforts. And lastly, we would like to also concentrate on the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration, a decade that is running from last year until 2030. And we would like to look at restoration efforts in the Alpine region and raise awareness on them. And that's it from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bettina. Bettina Head Dunkost dell'Agenzia Federale.
So Bettina is from the German Federal Agency for the Conservation of the Environment and Alpine Biodiversity Board. So I'm going to invite here, in order to further detail the context, Alice Beck of the Permanent Secretary of the Alpine Convention. She's going to tell us about the European strategy for the Alpine region.
Inviting me today. As it was said before, my name is Alice Beck. I'm working at the Permanent Secretariat of the Alpine Convention, and it's a pleasure to have the opportunity to introduce you to the structures in the Alpine area that are existing. I'm aware that some of you might know already a lot about the Alpine Convention, about USALP, about Interact, but in order to be on the same page for our discussion later on, I would like to build on the very good presentation we have just heard by Bettina to clarify what we are talking about. So, as we've heard before, the Alpine Convention was signed in 1991. Then there is the Alpine Space Program. This is an Interact transnational program. And there is USALP. This is the EU strategy for the Alpine region. And it's the first macro-regional strategy. And this was established in 2015. Thank you. So here you can see a map. I have brought some maps of the Alpine region and they are already away. So I hope that some people have already took them. And here you can see the perimeter of the Alpine Convention again. It's the green one, but you can also see the map of the Alpine Space Program, which is the yellow one, and also of the USALP, the strategy for the Alpine region. So as we've heard before, region is much broader as well as the Alpine Convention region than the Alpine Convention region. And the main difference maybe is that in the Alpine Convention, Monaco is also a contracting party, which is not the case for the Alpine Space Program and the USALP, the macro-regional strategy. We've already heard a lot about the Alpine Convention before. Here you can see the contracting parties again. And now I would like to point your attention to the Interreg Alpine Space Program. And this is an Interreg series of programs for cohesion of regions of the European Union. The funding comes from the European Regional Development Fund, who provides co-finances for projects across borders that fit into the objective of the Alpine Space Program. And the objective of the Alpine Space Program changes every 7 years based on the Alpine region's needs. And the projects have to fit in this objective, which is now currently the transition to a unique carbon neutral and climate resilient Alpine area. And it was established in 2000, and since then 179 projects have been co-financed. And the third structure that is existing in the Alpine region is USARP. As I've said before, it's the latest EU strategy for the Alpine region. We have seen the map and the area before. As I've said before, Monaco is not part of it, but there are the other Alpine regions, and especially important, there are 48 regions involved in this USARP, which it is called. It was endorsed by the European Council and is based on this defined geographical area. So now the image is a little bit distorted, but nevertheless, you can see the structure of USARP. Just focus on the little picture, it might be easier. So as you can see, USARP is a super complex structure, and I would not like to go into detail in every part of it, but for you to know how USARP and the Alpine region is interconnected, for example, the Permanent Secretariat of the Alpine Convention is an observer on the political level on the General Assembly, which is taking place once a year. The next General Assembly will take place in Bad Ragaz in Switzerland, as Switzerland is now chairing USARP. Now we have a Swiss presidency, so this is also special for our EU strategy. Switzerland is involved as well. Then PSAC is also very active concerning the action groups. There are 9 action groups in USARP, and the Permanent Secretariat of the Alpine Convention is leading Action Group 6 together with the region of Carinthia. Here you can see all the different thematic topics that USARP is covering. So it's not only about biodiversity. I think this might be interesting to mention. You can see here there are other topics covered by the action groups, research, mobility, labor market. But what might be important for our workshop here are the topics on the pillar of environment and energy. And the goal is, or the aim is, to have an inclusive environmental framework and renewable and reliable energy solutions. And there, as I've said before, HG6 is coordinated by the Permanent Secretariat of the Alpine Convention and region of Carinthia, but we are also in collaboration with HG7, for example, which is working on green infrastructure, and I've seen members are here today as well. And we are also observer in HG for mobility. Now, what is HG6 doing? Like, one of the most important things that the action groups do is they have to implement their work plan and then fulfill the activities according to the work plan. Can I get back? No. Okay, no. Okay, sorry. So they have to, the Action Group 6 elaborated the work plan with its members, and then the work plan was approved by the Executive Board. And HG6 focuses on most important challenges and opportunities concerning natural and cultural resources, including water. And they have developed like their 4 most important topics for the year 2023 until 2025. And these are the topics: water, forestry and agriculture, soil and biodiversity, and cultural heritage. And regarding the time constraint we have, I'd like to only focus on the topics that might be relevant for this workshop. For example, on the topic of forestry and agriculture, we continue the work of the Task Force on Multifunctional Forests and Sustainable Use of Timber. Another example that is relevant for this workshop today is the activities on traditional agricultural techniques and also activities concerning transhumance and pastoralism in the USAP region. Another main topic is soil and biodiversity, and there we have activities on the topic of land recycling and unsealing. And of course, the project today is also part of the HA6 work plan. Another very important topic is water. We have established this USAP task force on water transition, where other action groups are also participate in this. We have the topic of water security in USAP in a changing environment, also working on the topic of water scarcity and sharing river contact processes. So this was Action Group 6. Now, I don't want to go into much detail of Action Group 6 as I'm not the co-leader of it, but if you have more detailed questions, I'm sure that our colleagues from HC7 are happy to answer them. But in general, Action Group 7 focuses on the development of ecological connectivity in the whole USAP territory. And their main topics, which they have chosen for their work plan, as every action group has to do, and which was approved by the executive board, which I've said before, are the topics peatland, river, multifunctional forests, nature-based solutions, and GI Goes Business Award, which is a main activity of HE7 and which they continue. Very happy that we can keep up the collaboration between Action Group 6 and 7. And as you can see, we have many overlapping topics in both groups. And both groups are part of the USAP task force on water management transition. This is a rather newly established task force. And as you can see, many action groups are working on this topic together. And it's set as a tool for cross-cutting process within USAP, that the action groups have a tool to work together, but from their fields of expertise. For example, as you can see here, for example, Action Group 5 is also involved and they're working on digitalization of water management. Action Group 8 is also involved. They're working more on water scarcity and natural hazards and so on. So this is just an example of how USAP tries to work together on one topic from different fields of activities. So this was a very general overview of the whole USAP process and how Alpine Convention is connected to it. Thank you very much. And if you have further questions, I'm very happy to answer them also during coffee break. Thank you.
Thank you. Grazie, danke schön. Questa era Alice Beck, se volete, che è
This was unexpected. Thank you very much for being so concise. We are running a little bit late since we have so many things to tell you. We need a break. So we'll show you Sarah Serravalli's drawings, Sarah Serravalli's mind maps. Lots of things needs to be said. So let's have a break. Let's drink a coffee. And then the parallel sessions will start. Thank you very much. Bella, ma ci andiamo a prendere